Hi, welcome to Live on KEXP at Home. I'm Cheryl Waters, and I'm so thrilled to be here bringing you live music even during the pandemic. It's such an important part of our lives, and I'm very honored today to have a guest that has visited the KEXP airwaves many times. It's Patterson Hood of Drive-By Truckers. Hi, Patterson.
Hey, great to be here.
Oh, it's such a
Even if it's
pleasure.
virtually.
I know. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of this lately, haven't you? Tell me where
I
you're set up
have.
right now. It looks kind of cool where you are.
Yeah,
Hey,
this is my room. We actually just moved into this room about 2 weeks before the pandemic. Everything shut down, so just kind of in the nick of time. And but this is where I actually do live streams up here every other Wednesday on Noon Chorus, and then I've also this is where I work on songs and do press and do whatever.
we're learning a lot right now. We were talking earlier before we went on air, stuff we never really even thought we wanted to know how to do.
Nope,
It's kind of the new normal, which is
the new
crazy. And
okay.
exactly. Well, that takes me right into your latest album, The New Okay. And it includes some songs that you wrote during lockdown. And also, many of the songs came from the previous album, The Unraveling Sessions. I believe you recorded those in Memphis. And it sounded like you intended to have some of those songs that were left over from that session for a future album. I imagine you didn't think it would only be 9 months later till that future album came out. Tell me a little bit about this record coming together and what's on it and how it came together for the band.
Yeah, when the idea first came out about doing another record, it's like, oh, great, now we can have two brand new records that we can't tour behind. But we actually are still we cut 18 songs in Memphis when we were working on stuff that we pulled the Unraveling, our album that came out on I think the 30th of January or something. We pulled the majority of that came from the Memphis sessions, and then a good portion of this new record, The New Okay, came from those sessions. And we're actually still sitting on a few things that are kind of earmarked for a future project that I'm writing towards right now. And but I'm the New Okay kind of. We had all this, I guess everyone kind of knows, Portland was in the news a lot this summer, and our protests got kind of crazy here. And then they sent in the federal troops to basically occupy part of our town, and they tear gassed our mayor. It got pretty wacky. And I wrote a couple of songs this summer in the midst of all of that. And that kind of became a big part of us putting out another record. We decided we wanted to put something out right now while it's happening. We're kind of living through history, and our band's always been super into history, and really, there's been kind of a history portion of or aspect to our albums all along. And we've kind of, come to terms the last few years that we're living through a major chapter of history that I think people will look back on and talk about for many years. And so we kind of feel like we've been kind of documenting it as it's happened a little bit.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that you have been documenting it through your music. Well, since you're talking about some of those new songs now, let's play a couple songs from The New Okay. We're live on KEXP at Home. It's Patterson Hood from Drive-By Truckers.
The song's called The New Okay. On the big wingspan of your best laid plan, a world that ain't worth knowing in the palm of our hand. Tried putting the blame on misunderstanding. Village in flame, earthquake, crash landings. And it's a laugh a minute minute from a joke so cruel. Weighted blanket in the swimming pool. Okie dokie for a broken fool. Brand new time for your twisted ways. It's the new okay. Deep in my own head, drenched from the cups, I thought going downtown might cheer me up. Promised each other we wouldn't let it get too rough. Said, let me know, son, if you've had enough. She said, let me know when you've had your fill. Force of nature and the force of will break your spirit when it gets revealed that you've settled for an injury instead of a kill. Blood on your hands, point with skill. Now we've lost our way. It's the new okay. And I wonder if the life we live be around when the blade is lifted off the ground, when the place is shifted and it's all burnt to the ground. Will we rise up from where we're standing with our fists up to the sun? Will we settle for the tear gas dots staring down the gun? It's summer in Portland, everything's fine. Got Black Lives Matter holding up the line. We got mommies and vets taking fire from the cops on the beat and the occupiers. And it's 11:29 and the shit comes down. Shooting volleys from behind the fence, smashing medics in the once free press. It gets bloody and it gets messy. Goons with guns coming out to play. It's a battle for the very soul of the USA. It's the new okay. It's the new okay. It's the new okay. Wrote this song a few years back, and kind of it's almost like, to me, almost like a sequel to an older song of mine called "Let There Be Rock," and which was "Let There Be Rock" was kind of about the experiences of going to arena rock shows as a teenager, and this song's like maybe 10, 15 years later, and it's about like the era when we were out touring in the van and sleeping on floors, and it's called "The Distance." Standing in the trenches and swinging for the fences, locked on and clocked in. I ain't coming to my senses from religion or expenses or the guns that I ain't knocked in. I'll take the best you have to offer and improvise the rest, then do it again tomorrow. Keep your hands out of the coffers and always do your best, and we'll probably let you follow. drive. You gotta know who you can trust and whose ass you should bust when it's hard to tell the difference. When to put it to the test, when to lead with the left, what it takes to go the distance. What it takes to go the distance. When you live so far from home, determination and persistence. When the first punch has been thrown. Our forefathers used to brave the mighty ocean's wave for the things that were denied them. They sailed far away from home without cellular phone while the dragon swam beside them. They built cities shore to shore for their grandsons to explore, just the northern star to guide them. Traveled all across this land in our Econoline van, did our best to stand beside them. Passing out at the party and waking up alone. What it takes to go the distance when you live so far from home. What it takes to go the distance when you live so far from home. What it takes to go the distance when you live so far from home.
That's Patterson Hood of Drive-By Truckers live on KEXP at home. Songs from the album The New OK. That first one was the title track, and that song, The Distance. Oh, that's such a great song. Did I read somewhere that you started that way back around 2010 or 11 for the English Oceans album?
Yeah, I wrote it actually, I think even predating English Oceans, but it was originally on my list of songs like for consideration for English Oceans and, or for the record that became that. And, our dear friend who worked for us, Craig Liskey, passed away real suddenly as we were kind of preparing to make that record, and it kind of took the record in a different direction. So that song kind of got left behind, but I always had a real soft spot for it and wanted to do something with it. And, you know, us all being quarantined and all of this. I mean, I'm on the West Coast. My band is in 3 different states in the Southeast. So it was pretty difficult figuring out the logistics of working together to make this record. But, it's particularly cutting like the basic tracks, you know, cause we always record live. I mean, all our records are basically, you know, other than maybe one song here or there, they're all basically cut live in the studio with us all in one room playing together. And we wanted it to still feel that way, even though we were having to kind of, you know, improvise. But I remembered demoing that song back in like the beginning of 2013, just Brad and I. So I knew we had a drum track of the song. And sure enough, the track was just rock solid. So we actually built the track that is on the new OK out of that.
Yeah, tell me how you actually accomplished that with everybody in a different location.
It was fun. It was action packed because we decided to do this record the last week in July. And in order to have vinyl before Christmas, our deadline was brutal. So we basically worked around the clock for a few weeks, just sending each other stuff. And, like the new OK and Watching the Orange Clouds, I recorded in this room where I'm at right now, just myself, sent it to Brad, who went to David Barbie's studio in Athens, where we've made the majority of our records. And he laid down a drum track to my demo and then sent it back to me. And I went into a studio here in Portland and recorded the keeper guitar and vocal track to his, and then sent it back. And that's when then Matt and Jay and Cooley put their parts on. David Barbie put it all together and produced it and made it happen and mixed it.
Mike Cooley's been very upfront in interviews about saying there's not much about this time of pandemic that he has liked. But one of the things he said that he did enjoy was having all the time and space to put his parts on it. He thought that was kind of fun and a different way to do it. Obviously, I'm sure he would have rather been in the same room with the band. You're a pretty tight unit, the Drive-By Truckers.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been together 25 years. Cooley and I have been playing together for 35 years because the Truckers was our fourth band together. And, we had three bands that were, dismal failures, at least as far as getting any kind of, traction in the business sense before we formed the Truckers. And then the Truckers will turn 25 in June of next year. So yeah, we are. And, this, we went through eras where we had a lot of personnel changes. It seemed like every 2 albums we had some kind of major change up and all of that. But that's been almost a decade ago. I mean, it's this last 8 or 9 years has been just kind of idyllic. We really, found the 5 of us that are the band now. It's a special thing. We're very close friends. We all miss each other right now.
I'll bet. When you've gone the distance, as you said in that song. I mean, when you started touring as Drive-By Truckers in those little clubs, as you mentioned, you weren't necessarily really young kids.
No, we were, like I said, it was our fourth band together. We'd been together for over a decade by then, and 11 years when we started the Truckers. And so we were about a decade older than the majority of the bands that were our peers at that time, playing the really little rooms, playing for 25 to 50 people a night if we were lucky. And we hit the road. We really hit the road in '99 when we finished our second album, Pizza Deliverance. Everybody quit their jobs, and then, like clockwork, about a year and a half later, everybody started getting divorced because quitting our jobs didn't mean we were making a living. So it was a pretty tough time. Not everybody. Cooley and Ansley are still together. They were the only surviving marriage from that era. But yeah, it's been a crazy adventure.
The band's supposed to be on tour for much of this year, and of course, the pandemic changed that. And I imagine not only is it very incredibly disappointing for financial and artistic reasons, but you've been on the road pretty regularly your entire adult life. It's got to be quite a change for you. Is this maybe the longest stretch you've ever been at home? I mean,
Bob, it was the longest stretch, I think, by June. Literally, my kids. I've got 2 kids. They're getting big now, and my oldest is about to turn 16, and and they've never had me home to this extent or anywhere close to it. I've always really prided myself on being, a super involved dad. I don't, even as much as I toured, I might be gone 100 days a year, but those other 250 days, I am all in, and I'm only a phone call away when I'm gone. So, but they're not used to just having me up in their lives all the time to the extent they am. I think they're really ready for daddy to go back to work.
Well, you've talked quite openly about the depression and anger that you've experienced during the pandemic, which I find so refreshing. We talk openly about mental health here at KEXP and encourage our listeners to share their experiences so they won't feel so isolated and so that they know that others are going through the same thing. And we know from experience, hearing from hundreds, if not thousands of people, how much it helps them to know that they're not alone. But still, I know that it's been difficult. Can you talk a little bit about how this has all impacted you and how you brought up your children. I know you are very close with them and, have real conversations with them. How have you been able to discuss this with them and deal with it for yourself?
I mean, our family is, our pet cause as a band is an organization called Nucci Space out of Athens, Georgia, and it's a suicide prevention organization geared towards artists and musicians in the Athens, Georgia area. And Athens, Georgia has a huge music community that, of course, we came up in, and we're still a part of it. Our band's still based there, even though I live in Portland. And so we've been doing fundraising for them for 20 years now. And my wife and I were both on the board of directors for the better part of a decade on that organization. She was the president, I think, for like 3.5 years or something. And, so we're still very actively involved in mental health and suicide prevention. My wife and I have both been very candid about our own struggles with depression and even at points in our life with being pretty suicidal. And, so it's something we've always been, very open with our kids about as they've grown up and, wanting them to be able to communicate their feelings with us, when things feel like they're stacking up on them.
How have you been able to, as you matured and grown, and as I keep coming back to going the distance, you've been doing this for a long time, both on tour and this time at home during the pandemic. How have you been able to change things in your lifestyle, to create a healthier space and support yourself?
It's always a work in progress. I mean, I'm in a pretty good place right this minute. I got to be honest. This year has been a real struggle. I've been probably more depressed more days of this year than I can remember since I was maybe 27. I went through a really bad stretch when I was 27. And of course, the difference then is I didn't have a family, I didn't have kids. I didn't have a wife at 27. My band had broken up. I felt very unmoored and kind of dislocated from everything. I'd moved away from my hometown for the first time and went through a really horrific stretch there. And, whereas this year, I mean, on the surface, I've kind of got it made in a lot of ways. I've got a wonderful family and I live in, I live in this great room, surrounded by, paintings by people I love and music and like I said, my kids are just, everything to me. And yet I've really struggled because so much of my own identity is mixed up in this thing I do. And, and I've been doing it so long, I'm pretty good at it. And so and so to me, this thing I am is all based around, going out there and playing rock shows and writing songs and recording and being with my band and doing that and having that all kind of dormant and, kind of seriously endangered and seeing venues that I've grown up loving close down because they can't make it. And my favorite restaurant closed down and my favorite, it's been like just over and over. And it's been a tough headspace. And I've really, I think making this record helped me tremendously through it. And, cause it gave me at a time when I probably needed it most, it gave me something tangible to work on that that we had to come up with, improvised ways to make happen in the midst of all of this, and kind of made me feel like, okay, I've still got this thing I do. It's just different right now, and it will come back, And so it kind of, gave me a platform to give myself a pep talk, I guess.
I have faith it will come back too. And you released 2 albums this year, or you Drive By Truckers, earlier this year in January, The Unraveling, and then, of course, The New OK. And we've got a song coming up now, one from each of those records. Here's 21st Century USA. It's Drive By Truckers, Patterson Hood live on KEXP at home.
I wrote this song at an off-ramp off I-90 just outside of a town called Gillette, Wyoming. But honestly, it could have been anywhere in America. The song's called 21st Century USA. The parking lot behind Oasis Tan, down the street from the Mexican restaurant behind the AutoZone, and the place is hawking payday loans. There's a Kmart and a KFC, a fitness center and an Applebee's, Wells Fargo and a Taco John's, a good time bar to get your bad swerve on. In a town that's named for razor blades, all American but Chinese made, folks working hard for shrinking pay, 21st Century USA. Out I-90 we might see you pass, we got coal and methane gas. We got jobs where the work is hard, and stores to max out your credit cards. In a town that ain't nowhere near, just like every town everywhere, folks working hard for shrinking pay. Say we have to hang on just a little bit longer, and a savior will come our way. We'll know him by the neon sign and the opulence he maintains. If Amazon can deliver salvation, I'll order it up on my phone. With Big Brother watching me always, why must I always feel so alone? Men working hard for not enough at best, women working just as hard for less. They get together late at night at bars and bang each other like crashing cars. Working hard but it don't seem enough. Calloused hearts make even love seem tough. Prescription pills to make the pain hurt less, until your calloused heart just needs a rest. Look at your children and you hope and pray they can conjure up a better day. No one remembers how it got that way. 21st Century USA. 21st Century USA. I wrote this song this past summer, right after the murder of George Floyd. It's called "Watching the Orange Clouds." Go ahead and holler for help. No one's gonna save you. These voices that were hired to protect only betray you. Now it seems it's all going down, and I'm just standing on a balcony outside of town, watching the orange clouds. The kids are in the bedrooms asleep, and I don't want to wake them from some dreams that I hope are sweet. These days have shaken them, walking in our daydreams, needing some awakening from the privilege of skin in the seat. At the table that's awaiting them across the Burnside Bridge, there's heads getting bashed and tear gas, boys too stupid to really be proud, watching the orange clouds, watching the orange clouds. And I'm trying really hard to find a way to help to make it all better, as I struggle on how and if I should share these stories that are so upsetting. But I'm starting to doubt my own facility of even comprehending my place. It's too late to try for shelter as the helicopters give it away, give it away. Get some sleep. Just didn't realize this bottom is so damn deep. Hoping one day we'll rise and move on to some better place. We can look back on nightmares of this endless spring, watching the orange clouds, watching the orange clouds. And I'm trying really hard to find a way to help to make it all better. I'm just trying really hard to find a way to help to make it all better. I'm just trying really hard to find a way to help to make it all better. I'm just trying really hard to find a way.
We're live on KEXP at home with Patterson Hood of Drive-By Truckers. Ugh, those songs, they just get me right in the heart. You mentioned that Watching the Orange Clouds was written the weekend after the murder of George Floyd and amidst the nationwide protests for racial justice. And I feel the same way. I mean, I'm just trying really hard to find a way to make it all better. It's good that you're talking about these things. It seems like your most recent albums, I'm thinking of American Band, The Unraveling, and The New OK, have all foretold what's to come. I don't know if that was the intention of the band, but speaking of The Unraveling, it turned out to be this accurately dark premonition of the year to come. Of course, American Band was written or released, right at the 2016 election. What's been the experience of sitting with those albums that you wrote, prior to these things?
It's been weird. When we set out to do American Band, we finished recording it before the first primary of the 2016 election. And then it came out in September of that year. And we honestly thought that, we'll go out and we'll tour this really hard for the next 3 or 4 months, and the election will happen and life will move on and we'll figure out what we're going to do next year. We didn't really, think of it in terms of, it's funny because we generally do think of things in terms of longer in the future, but that was more like a snapshot of a moment in time, we thought. And it's like, we're doing this, we're documenting this kind of crazy screwed up moment in time. And hopefully it's going to, things will calm down and settle down. And then of course, we all know what happened. And so we ended up touring behind that record for the next several years because it kept becoming more and more kind of timely and relevant as it went on. And things we were singing about became more ingrained in the national conscience, I think, as that president became the president. And, I don't even want to say his name. As Voldemort, entered the White House. And,
that's what I say too, Voldemort.
Yeah. And so, it was weird. And then when we were writing the songs that became The Unraveling, I was thinking in terms of like documenting more the personal nature of it all. If American Band was our so-called political record, this is the personal, because to me, the politics that these songs address, it's not just politics, it's personal. It affects our family. The song Thoughts and Prayers on The Unraveling was inspired by my kids coming home freaked out from having lockdown drills in school and seeing, children their age being shot at school and living in a culture, a society, a country that somehow seems to think that maybe it's not okay, but it's nothing they're willing to do anything about. And which to them, to our kids, sends the signal that the grown-ups think this is okay. It's okay if, you're fodder for target practice when you're trying to learn reading and writing and arithmetic, so, in Babies in Cages, it came from a conversation with my son, who, at that time was, I think, 7 or 8 years old, and he's asking me if he's in danger of being taken away from his parents and put in a cage. And I'm having to explain to him, it's like, no, actually, you're not, because of how you look. And because of where we come from, and he's like, well, how is that okay? And it's like, it's not okay. There's nothing okay about any of it. We're going to keep you safe, but there's other parents who aren't able to keep their kids safe from that. And so to me, it was a very personal record. And then of course, we all know what's happened this year, and so, we've all had a lot of conversations about, maybe we need to name our next album something more optimistic. And I can't say on the air what probably the winning one was, but, we're all hoping for better days.
Yes, we are. Well, it does sound like you've been keeping yourself relatively busy during quarantine. Of course, you have this new record, The New OK, and I hear you've been working on some writing, and hopefully I'm not letting some information out of the bag, but I did read somewhere that you have a record that you're working on or that's coming out with your dad.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to come out, but we're basically finished with the recording. We at some point need to all get together to try to mix it and figure out how we're going to put it out. But this is something that started a long time ago. In 2007. I'm good friends with Luther and Cody Dickinson from the band North Mississippi All Stars, and their dad was one of my heroes. Jim Dickinson, he produced Big Star's Third, which is one of my desert island records, and he produced The Replacements' Pleased to Meet Me, which is a very big favorite of mine. And he's just this, like, he played piano on Wild Horses by the Stones, and he played on Dylan's Time Out of Mind record. He's just an amazing musician and producer and artist. And my dad's a session musician from Muscle Shoals, part of the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. He's one of the Swampers. And so my dad and Luther and Cody's dad were peers. And yet, Jim Dickinson was also kind of straddled the two worlds between that session musician, do everything perfect world and the more crazy punk rock world that I grew up kind of, considering myself part of. And so we came up with this idea to the five of us get together. It makes a band. Jim Dickinson's a keyboard player. Luther's one of my favorite guitar players. Cody's one of the best drummers anywhere. My dad plays bass. I play guitar, and so we were going to form a band and call it Dickinsons and Hoods. And we got together in Jim Dickinson's barn studio, the Zebra Ranch, where he based his operation in North Mississippi. And we recorded, I think, 6 or 7 songs one week and had this wonderful time. And it's like, well, we're all, all our bands are busy. They tour all the time. We tour all the time. It's like, we're going to get together, next year or in a few months or whatever and finish this and make this record. And then Jim got sick and he passed away. And so for years, it just sat dormant because none of us really had the heart to even really think about it. But before he passed away, Jim wrote out instructions on a card of how he wanted to see the record completed in his absence, and which included having Spooner Oldham, who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and is from Muscle Shoals and has toured with the Truckers even, and having him be the keyboard player for any future recordings we did. So finally, last November, about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago right now, we all got together at the old Muscle Shoals Sound Studios, which has been reopened, and with my dad and Spooner and Luther and Cody and myself, and we cut a few more songs and basically finished tracking this project we started so long ago. So I'm really hoping once this all this is over and people can get together that we can make a priority out of mixing that and finding a home for it and putting it out.
Oh, please do make sure that sees the light of day, not too far off into the future. I know you have quite a few priorities. Hopefully, you mentioned you have some music ready for yet another Drive By Truckers album. I hope that's not 3 albums that you put out before we get to see you on tour again.
No. Yeah, I hope so too. I like to think of, we didn't set out to do it, but I think I kind of look at American Band and The Unraveling and now the New OK as kind of a trilogy, and they kind of fit together that way, and it actually works pretty well that way, and and I'd like to consider that trilogy done. And so I am looking forward to, what we do next as a band, because I think we're all kind of itching to once we're able to get together, explore some different things and do some different things. And I want to go out and play these songs live too, because I think, particularly watching the Orange Clouds, I'm really excited to hear what that morphs into when we start playing it out together to get, live.
That's right. Songs come alive and they change and they morph. And I can't wait to hear the band perform those songs live. Well, I appreciate you talking with me today. And you did, speaking of the Replacements, you recorded a fun cover for us too.
Yeah. When I was in college, God, way back when, and basically wasting my life away because I was a terrible student and I changed majors, I think literally every semester, and never found anything that just fit. I was basically running from who I really needed to be and wanted to be. I think I was trying on all these shoes that didn't fit. And I had a moment of clarity one night, just driving around, probably drinking and driving back then. But driving around my hometown, listening to what was then a brand new record, The Replacements, Tim. And I was reviewing it for the college paper, and I just got obsessed with it. And I was listening to it, and I can remember specifically listening to the song "Here Comes a Regular" and having this like moment of clarity that this is what I need to be doing. And so I've always had a real special place in my heart for the Replacements because they wrote some of the greatest songs of our time, anyway. And that was the band that led to me dropping out of college and forming Adam's House Cat with Mike Cooley in the fall of 1985. And here we are all these years later, still doing this crazy thing.
Well, we're so happy that you are, and we've had so many wonderful opportunities to feature you live on KEXP. We appreciate all the support over the years.
Well, that goes both ways. Y'all have always been fantastic supporters of our band from way, way back, and we so appreciate it.
Well, here's Patterson Hood of Drive By Truckers with a replacement song live on KEXP at Home.
Read about your band in some local page. Didn't mention your name. Didn't mention your name. Sweet Georgia breezes, safe, cool, and warm. We're headed up north. You're headed up north. On and on and on and on with sun you on. On and on and on and on with sun you on. Weary voice that's laughing on the radio once. We sounded drunk, never made it on. Passing through and it's late. The station started to fade. Picked another one on. And the very next day, on and on and on and on with Sonny. Try to find you left at the door, left of the door, left of the door.
Westerberg, The Replacements, Left of the Dial. Thank you.
Ah, that one always hits the spot. You put a cover song from Ramones on the new OK. Tell me about the decision to do that. That was fun, a nice surprise.
That was fun. When I alluded to us being in Memphis, recording, we cut, like I said, 18 songs in like a week in Memphis, and we had just finished recording what we thought was the last of what we were planning on doing for that week, and it was like, Saturday night, almost midnight. We'd been in the studio all week, and we're all exhausted, but kind of elated because it had gone really well. We knew we'd had a really kind of special week, and we'd met Mick Jagger, and because he happened into the studio while we were there. We were at Sam Phillips recording service in Memphis, and Mick Jagger owns the rights to the Peter Guralnick book about Sam Phillips's life, and he was in town scoping out the locations to maybe do a movie about him. And so he came in one day while we were working on the record. I mean, it was just this crazy week, and we're just finishing up, and we're about to start packing everything up to drive, to go back on tour a couple of days later. And David Barbie, our producer, comes out of the control room and it's like, "You're all set up. Before you do anything, I want you to do a take of KKK Took My Baby Away." We've been playing it live for a few years by that time. We started playing it live when we put out American Band because it just kind of fit the times, unfortunately. And so it was always fun to play live. And it's like, just do it live, and our bass player, Matt Patton, sings it. It's like, he's put like a stage mic in front of Matt, and it's like live vocal, everything, just one take, and you'll be glad you have it. And so that's literally it. It's one take, and with a live vocal. The only overdub on it is, after that take, we all gathered around one mic and did the backup vocals, the gang vocals for the choruses and stuff, which was a lot of fun. And that was it. And it's like, we'll use that someday it'll be great to a B-side or something, And then when we started compiling the songs for the new OK, it was like, oh man, we've got that song. That's the perfect way to end what's looking like it's kind of this trilogy of records about this crazy time we've been living through. Let's put it on the record. And so thank you, David Barbie. And because it's all because of him that we have that.
I love that. David, a longtime member of the band.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, Patterson, thank you so much for taking so much time with us today. Those songs sounded amazing. Again, I cannot wait to hear the band perform those live. I just know that's going to be right around the corner.
That's right. Can't wait. And I can't wait to be back in your beautiful city.
We can't wait either. Thank you again so much. This has been Patterson Hood of Drive By Truckers live on KEXP at Home.
Discover new music at listener-powered KEXP.org.